My name is Dr. Mercurio Arborea, and I am the founder of the Arborea Institute. Through our unique blend of benign pharmacology, sensory therapy, and energy sculpting, we can guide you to a new, better, happier you. You are about to embark on a great journey. Let the new age of enlightenment begin.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
It's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
Welcome, useless eaters, to the Odd Man Out podcast, where we talk about hidden history, deep political policy, occult deconstruction, economics, religion, and philosophy. I'm your rabbit hole aficionado, the Odd Man. Welcome. What's up, my brothers and my sisters? So I just wanted to throw a video together quickly to talk about the Council of Councils, which is ran by the Council on Foreign Relations. You know, that's kind of my jam. That's what I talk about. So anyway, maybe some people are getting tired of it, but this one's a little different, so I'll go through it, try to tell you a little bit about it as quickly as I can. The Council of Councils, what is it? Well, it says here it's an international initiative to connect leading foreign policy institutes from around the world in a dialogue on issues of global governance and multilateral cooperation. Their mission statement: the defining foreign policy challenges of the 21st century are global in nature. To help direct high-level international attention and effective policy responses to these threats and opportunities, the Council on Foreign Relations has created a Council of Councils, COC. And that's a good band, by the way, but they probably would agree with this. Happy horse shit. But anyway, the Council on Councils is composed of 28 major policy institutes from some of the most influential countries, the world's most influential countries. It is designed to facilitate candid, not for attribution, dialogue, and consensus building among influential opinion leaders from both established and emerging nations, with the ultimate purpose of injecting the conclusions of its deliberations into high-level foreign policy circles within members' countries. And what that means is they have their members, they get them into places in presidential administrations and other places of governments, or of governance in other areas in other parts of the world, other countries, and then they give them these policies that 10 to 30 of their people have worked on and written, and then they implement them. They become law. They are the shadow government. And this is a network that spans all over the world. As you're about to see, this is not just the Council on Foreign Relations here, and it's not just in England at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House. It's not just the Brookings Institute. You go down here to Council, about the Council of Councils. The membership of the Council of Councils includes leading institutions from 24 countries, roughly tracking the composition of the Group of 20, G20. The network facilitates candid, not for attribution, dialogue, and consensus building among influential opinion leaders from established and emerging nations. A list of member organizations is available on the Council of Councils roster page, which we'll see in a minute. In addition to the annual conference, the Council on Councils provides an ongoing exchange for research and policy collaboration among its members, including during regional conferences hosted by members. The group also considers long-term structural reforms that would enhance the global governance capacity of leading international institutions. The Council of Councils initiative is funded by a generous endowment created by the Renee Kern Family Foundation and the Rabina Foundation as part of the CFR's International Institutions and Global Governance Program. All right, I think we're going to have to look into the Kern Family Foundation and the Rabina Foundation. But here, this is what I'm talking about. Let's get to the meat of this. The membership roster of the Council of Councils. Well, you have Argentina, you have Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Israel, and of course Israel does have a separate institution called the Israel Council on Foreign Relations, so that makes 2 for Israel. Italy, Japan, Mexico, Nigeria, Poland, Russia. Now Russia, these 2 really surprised me. Russia has a Council on Foreign Relations, or a Council on Foreign and Defense Policy, which is a sister organization, and they also have Institute of Contemporary Development, INSOR. Of course, Saudi Arabia, that's no big, surprise there. Singapore, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, and of course, the first one, Chatham House, or the Royal Institute of International Affairs. And then you have the other one in the UK, the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Of course, the mothership, as Hillary called it right here, the Council on Foreign Relations. Isn't that funny? So anyway, what this allows, there's lots of institutions. There is, I mentioned a couple, the Brookings Institute. There's, so many different ones. Of course, Trilateral Commission and Bilderberg are the other 2 most popular ones, besides the Council on Foreign Relations, the Atlantic Council, the Aspen Institute, the one that John Brisson brought to attention, the Council for National Policy. But see here, the Council on Foreign Relations has been around for 100 years. They celebrate 100 years. They were formed in 1921 from the wills of the diamond mogul Cecil Rhodes. He wanted to take over the world, and he left his wills and all of his money to do just that. So you have the Council on Foreign Relations, and you have all these different organizations that have come out of just that. So it's pretty amazing. So I just wanted to make this quick video and just kind of show you guys. And if you want to check it out, just look up the Council of Councils. And with that, short and sweet, I just wanted to throw this out there. Thank you guys. Talk to you later. Remember, their order is not our order. See ya. All right, I'm going to dive a little bit further into this video. This is kind of 2 videos I put together, but it's all about the same thing. And so we're going to look at the Swiss Policy Research Institute, and they did some good stuff a few years ago on all the media figures and media organizations that are in the Council on Foreign Relations and how they control the thoughts of the people. So they're not without their biases. They're heavily pro-Trump, and they seem to ignore the fact that he also appointed quite a few Council on Foreign Relations members. Of course, nothing like the Joe Mala presidency so far. Already 20-plus members, and he's just started. But we'll look into this. Here is Joe with Richard Haass here, the director of the Council on Foreign Relations, who can be seen on Real Time with Bill Maher quite a few times, and Maher even jokes around about them being the institute that controls the world. And of course, Haass kind of uncomfortably laughs when Maher says that, but it's kind of funny. So we'll look here into the text of the article. It was originally published in November 2020, but they updated it last month, January 2021, to kind of like look at the fact that Joe is indeed appointing Council on Foreign Relations members. So it says here, a Joe Biden presidency means a return to normality. simply because it means a return of the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. In 2008, Barack Obama received the names of his entire future cabinet already 1 month prior to his election by CFR senior fellow and Citigroup banker Michael Froman, as a WikiLeaks email later revealed. Consequently, the key posts in Obama's cabinet were filled almost exclusively by CFR members, as was the case in most cabinets since World War II. To be sure, Obama's 2008 Republican opponent, the late John McCain, was a CFR member too. Michael Froman later negotiated the TPP and the TTIP international trade agreements before returning to the CFR as a distinguished fellow. I'll also point out the fact that John McCain and the John McCain Institute, I believe it's called, he has as a backer on the board George Soros, the House of Saud, and one of the Rothschilds. I forget her name right now. But yeah, John McCain was a longtime CFR member. Yeah, both sides, friends, both sides. It's no conspiracy. It's out in the open if people just had the mind to look into things a little bit deeper. So in 2017, CFR nightmare president Donald Trump, and this is where it gets really biased, but that's okay. In 2017, CFR nightmare president, and that's true, Donald Trump immediately canceled these trade agreements because he viewed them as detrimental to U.S. domestic industry, which allowed China to conclude its own recently announced RCEP free trade area, encompassing 14 countries and a third of global trade. Trump also canceled other CFR achievements like the multinational Iran nuclear deal and the UN climate and migration agreements, and he tried but largely failed to withdraw U.S. troops from East Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, Europe, and Africa, thus seriously endangering the global U.S. empire built over decades by the CFR and its 5,000 elite members. Well, most of that is true, but I'll just say this. We were lobbing a record number of bombs in Afghanistan and in Somalia during the Trump presidency. And also, we were droning at a record rate, drone killing people. And I'll mention one more time, and if you guys listen to the show, you've heard me say this, but right when President Trump was elected, the military changed its policies on how it reports civilian casualties. So it basically doesn't even have to report them anymore to the American people. I'm moving more and more towards the president just being a figurehead. I really am. You see that Michael Froman, sent Barack Obama an email of the people he was supposed to pick for his cabinet. Now, if that's not a shadow government, what is? But sure, these silly liberals, they're all high-minded and everything. They like to make jokes about anything that seems the least bit conspiratorial. And I don't know if it's the fact that they're so shallow they don't know this information that is easily available, or they're just covering it up because they're every bit corporatists, just like the right wing. But anyway, I try to put both sides out there because I'm tired of being lied to, and I'm just not having it. Unsurprisingly, most of the U.S. media, whose owners and editors are themselves members of the CFR, didn't like President Trump. This was also true for most of the European media, whose owners and editors are members of the international CFR affiliates like the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission, founded by CFR directors after the conquest of Europe during World War II. Moreover, it was none other than the CFR in 1996 recommended a closer cooperation between the CIA and the media, i.e., a restart of the famous CIA Operation Mockingbird. Historically, OSS and CIA directors since William Donovan and Allen Dulles have always been CFR members. You guys know I can't read worth a crap. Joe Biden promised that he would form the most diverse cabinet in U.S. history. This may be true in terms of skin color and gender, but almost all of his key future cabinet members have one thing in common. They are indeed members of the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. Yeah, big surprise there, right? This is the case for Anthony Blinken, State, Lloyd Austin, Defense, Alejandro Mayorkas, Homeland Security, William J. Burns, CIA Director, Janet Yellen, Treasury, Linda Thomas Greenfield, Ambassador to the UN, Gina Raimondo, Commerce, Cecilia Rouse, Chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, John Kerry, Special Envoy for Climate, and even Tom Vilsack, Agriculture. 44-year-old Jake Sullivan, Biden's National Security Advisor, is not yet a CFR member, but has been a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, a think tank promoting active international engagement by the United States, and a member of the U.S.-German Marshals Fund Alliance for Securing Democracy, a major promoter of the Russiagate disinformation campaign, both of which are run by CFR members. Well, yeah, that's the Carnegies. Oh no, I'm dropping stuff. The Carnegies, they're hand in hand with the CFR and the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. In fact, I was just reading a couple days ago a PDF, I think it was like 40-something pages, a paper from the Carnegie Institute by the Council on Foreign Relations. And it was basically how Trump had destroyed the international order and how they must put it back together. And what they mean when they say international order, they claim that it's for peace and it's the only way to get peace in the world, and they need to disarm everyone, disarmament, and end the borders, end sovereignty, because it's the only way to have peace. But what they don't tell you is they have all their multinational corporations and investment bankers, central bankers in the CFR who want to create this global governance so they can concentrate their powers. And that's what's happening under the Great Reset that's happening right now more than ever. So they're really going for it. They've been planning this thing for over 100 years. And I'll just remind people that the Council on Foreign Relations is 100 years old, started in 1921. So we'll continue this here. Update. Additional CFR members in Joe Biden's incoming administration include Susan Rice, White House Domestic Policy Council Director, Jeffrey Zients, Coronavirus Coordinator, Wendy Sherman, Deputy Secretary of State, John Feiner, Deputy National Security Advisor, and Eric Lerner, Office of Science and Technology Policy. Victoria Nuland, of course, the war whore herself. Victoria Nuland, Under Secretary of State for Political Affairs, is the wife of former CFR member and Project for a New American Century co-founder Robert Kagan. Project for a New American Century, I couldn't remember what they stood for earlier, but of course they were behind, I believe, 9/11, because they had, they were this elite group of CFR members for the most part. I believe that you had Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, I believe. Who else? I know I'm leaving out some people. I believe Colin Powell as well. There are a bunch of them. And they had this paper written up before 9/11, as I said in the first part, that was basically saying what the military and the security state needed was a new Pearl Harbor so they could have the excuse to spend all this money to upgrade everything they needed to upgrade. So the national security state was alive and well. And I'll remind people that they already had started planning the Department of Homeland Security under another name under President Clinton. Okay, most of Biden's CFR-vetted nominees supported recent U.S. wars against Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Yemen, as well as the 2014 regime change in Ukraine. Unsurprisingly, neoconservative Max Boot, the CFR Senior Fellow in National Security Studies and one of the most vocal opponents of the Trump administration, has called Biden's future cabinet America's A-team, right? Excuse me there. Yeah, so that's the way these guys do. They claim they want peace, but what they really want is them in control of foreign policy, and they will continue to push destabilization campaigns to further drive chaos into the world as a way of getting closer to their new world order, world government. I talk about this all the time. It says here, update, Israeli media note that the fact that, contrary to Biden's claims of diversity, many of Biden's cabinet appointees are Jewish, and all of his 3 children are married to Jewish families, or into Jewish families. That's funny because, Biden's supposed to be this Catholic, but then I'm reading articles about him and his rabbi, and I'm wondering if there's any relation to Chabad and Kabbalah and any of that stuff, like we pointed out in the last episode of the Oddcast with Jared Kushner and Ivanka. And also, if you look in the show notes of the last Oddcast, you'll see that Trump's ex-wife, I guess it was Marla Maples, has been practicing Kabbalah for 20 plus years. Thus, after 4 years of populism and isolationism, a Biden presidency will mean the return of the Council on Foreign Relations and the continuation of a tradition of more than 70 years. Indeed, the CFR was founded in 1921 in response to the trauma of 1920, when U.S. President Warren Harding and the U.S. Senate turned isolationist and renounced U.S. global leadership after World War I. In 2016, Donald Trump's America First campaign reactivated this 100-year-old foreign policy trauma. Well, when they say isolationist, what they're actually saying is non-interventionist. And that's the way this country was in the beginning. And the people were non-interventionist. And the founders, many of them are non-interventionists. And you can go back and look at their quotes. But after several hundred years of propaganda being put upon the people constantly, they've been brainwashed to think, and especially in the conservative circles, that war is patriotic. But we lose our freedoms when they pick these wars that have nothing to do with our Constitution and our borders. We're the ones that end up having to give up our rights. So it's a way to usurp debt, to get funding for all their different large organizations. It's corporate welfare, and it's a way to get people to give up their rights and control people. And it's the single biggest thing. Come up with a boogeyman. And it's not to say there's not real enemies out there, but they're always looking for more. And you know me, I'm halfway convinced that a lot of these leaders and leadership in these countries are actually friendly, and they use each other's countries as a threat to scare the hell out of their people and make the excuse to launder money for their military-industrial complexes. And, I'm not anti-soldier by any means. I really appreciate everything our soldiers have done. But these guys up in these higher positions and these defense industries and these colonels and these generals who are a part of the Council on Foreign Relations, the council has worked directly with the Pentagon and the DoD for decades. And I told you earlier, they are for disarmament and the ending of sovereignty. Now, why would our top military departments and officials work with an institution like that whose goals were against our Constitution and against what Americans used to want? Let's see. It says here, update in November 2020, Donald Trump fired almost all of the high-level Pentagon Defense Policy Board, including former CFR directors Henry Kissinger and Madeleine Albright. Well, that was... that's at the end of the damn administration, right? So this is where I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not familiar with this show, especially if you lean conservative, just have a little bit of patience with me and let me explain something to you. Trump, in his administration, he met with the director of the Council on Foreign Relations before he got elected. He met with Richard Haas. That's on record. Even InfoWars put an article out about that. Then he also met with Henry Kissinger, who is the premier poster boy for the Council on Foreign Relations, globalism, I believe the Aspen Institute, Trilateral Commission. He is the one who's been behind so many terrible globalist ideas and policies. Then he, of course, appointed John Bolton. I believe he actually appointed General H.R. McMaster first, who was a Council on Foreign Relations member. Then the horrible warmonger Bolton, who everybody said, don't do this, don't do this. Well, not everybody. The more libertarianish people said don't do it. He's not to be trusted. He was also a member of that project for a New American Century, who was behind, I think, maybe behind 9/11. Elliot Abrams, they appoint under Trump. Elliot Abrams, CFR member, was appointed to try and pull off the coup in Venezuela, which was none of our damn business. Who cares if they're communists? Of course, Judge Neil Gorsuch, Council on Foreign Relations member. K.T. McFarland, Council on Foreign Relations member. Mike Pompeo is on the board of the Wichita Committee on Foreign Relations, which is a Council on Foreign Relations offshoot in Wichita. Anthony Scaramucci was also a Council on Foreign Relations member. I know there's several more, and there's a couple of Bilderberg members that he appointed. Also, I'll go ahead and point out one more time for the newbies who may watch this. Trump also appointed Wilbur Ross, longtime Rothschild's right-hand man. So, to pretend like he was super anti-globalist is really just being very disingenuous. But anyway, I'll finish this up. It says, was the 2020 presidential election stolen, as some allege? There are certainly indications of significant statistical anomalies in the key Democrat-run swing states. Whether these were decisive for the election outcome may be up to the courts to decide. At any rate, Joe Biden may as well be the first president known to be involved in international corruption before even entering the office. And it finishes up with, why are most U.S. and international media hardly interested in this? Well, why should they be? And this goes back to, I told you, and if you click on this, American Empire and its media, this is the article they did connecting all the different Council on Foreign Relations members to the media. Tons of them are in the media, tons of them, top names. So you'll want to check this out. This is really, it'll definitely let you know and tell you who you cannot trust, absolutely not trust. And there's a lot of people on that pretend to be on your side that you can't trust either, but it's just the way it is. I mean, you have to be willing to go there and look into these things. But anyway, I wanted to put this out there. I know some of you are probably tired of hearing about the Council on Foreign Relations, but you got to remember, we've got a new president, or whatever he is, and 20 plus members of the council already, and it's just the middle of February, not even the middle of February. So you've got to understand that they are in charge. 100 years of the council, guys. 100 years of the council. Let's see here. Let me go over here and CFR.org. Here it is. Give it just a second here. I want to show you, just so you know what I'm talking about. Right here, they're celebrating. Well, what happened to it? They're celebrating 100 years. 100 years. If you want to know what they've got planned, what the elites have planned, you go to CFR.org or you go to foreignaffairs.org. They tell each other what they're doing by communicating through this site and through Foreign Affairs Magazine, which is their online, or they have paper. You can get it in print. Their magazine, which has been around for many, many years. Many years. Let's see here. Membership. Okay. Well, let's see if I can find it here. The individual memberships. We won't go through the individual memberships because it's just so vast, but I suggest you spend about 20 minutes, 30 minutes going through those and see all the media figures and the people from the Pentagon and the former presidential administration's members that are in it. And I guess I said media figures and the people from academia. It's just unbelievable. They are the shadow government and the elite group. And yes, there's many, many more elite institutions that I talked about earlier. But these guys, as I pointed out in the first half, are worldwide. Worldwide. So you have to understand that They control a lot of policy. They have a lot of sway. 100 years? They've been around 100 years? Let's see. Let's look at their corporate member roster, which I've pointed out before on other shows. But look here. Founders, AT&T, Bank of America, Chevron, Facebook, ExxonMobil, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Google, PepsiCo, NASDAQ. Look at their president's circle here. Check this out. BlackRock, Blackstone. Remember BlackRock? Remember the show I did on BlackRock, guys? Work hand in hand now with the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. Let's see here. Look at all these guys. You're not going to get any more powerful and influential than the Council on Foreign Relations. Look who backs them. Look at this. This is all those groups and all those institutions and businesses and companies that people can't stand. And what's funny is, look at all these groups. Now, this would be tons of groups in here that traditional liberals would hate and be against. But they don't even know enough about their own party and politics to know that they support their own enemies. And Joe Biden is a part of this group, as well as Obama and so many others. And so their whole party is controlled by these groups that they actually hate. And that's politics for you. By the time, when you're engaged in the partisan rivalry, and you're so caught up in the emotions of it all and the rivalry of it all, you end up supporting things that are against your own best interests. And so these silly, ignorant, know-nothing people on the left, and trust me, there's tons of problems with people on the right and their blind allegiance to Trump and different things like that. But these people on the left don't even know that this is who they support. It's so silly, yet so easy. It's not hidden, guys. It's not a cult. It's not esoteric. It's not hidden. It's out in the open. And that's why H.G. Wells, I believe it was in the 1940s, called his book The Open Conspiracy. And it was a book. He was a Fabian socialist, but I believe he was also a council member. He was very friendly with council members if he wasn't a council member. But anyway, he hung around in those circles. And the book was about how to create global governance, because they knew best. The academics and these progressive elites knew best. And so he wrote that book. He also wrote a book called New World Order. He also wrote a book even before that called New Worlds for Old. And it was all planned years and years and years ago. So people can say that it's a conspiracy, but 100 years of the council, and even before that, they were around with the Rhodes Roundtable groups, the Pilgrim Society, the Society of Helpers. It's just unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. So anyway, I appreciate so much you taking the time to watch this, and I thank you for your support. Check me out on _TheOddManOut on Twitter and Instagram, and also look me up on Patreon /TheOddManOut if you want to get extra stuff. Thank you so much. Much love to you. Cheers and blessings. And remember, their order is not our order. Thank you.